Happy Wednesday. No, Thursday. I forgot. Happy Thursday. We moved it to the Thursday. Welcome to Second Lap. I'm your host, Gramps. We are at 38,000, 11 miles for those
Wow.
keeping track. It's it's a shitload of miles. I'll say that out loud. That's an industry term, so it can't be censored by any of the artificial intelligence solutions that are out there. And I made most of that up, probably. We're going to talk a little AI. We're going to talk a little health. We're going to talk mental health. We're going to talk, well, we're going to talk about what I had for lunch when we first kicked this off. Please bring on the guest. OG is back.
Hey, fam. Great to see you.
Welcome. No, we're
Love to see
super,
you clocking miles.
thank you. Super excited to have you back. I just, because we were doing it and it's sort of on a different time and everything, I normally do the podcast on an empty stomach, as weird as that probably sounds. Because
I'm
we do
mostly
it.
on an empty stomach, so I'll take it for the team.
Yeah. So take it. You're in my normal state, and today I ate ahead of the podcast, and so
I just know what
hopefully
you mean, though. It does, like, I find after I eat, I'm more sluggish and less sharp. So,
that's okay. So I'm giving that, I'm giving that prep. Ronnie can filter this out, or maybe he can speed it up later. Yeah, my wife makes me these protein burritos, and I was going to say one of the things that me as a human that makes me not like certain things is texture, right? It's not always about the flavor, but it's kind of like a texture thing.
yeah.
And so these are super protein. They've got cottage cheese, which if you had me strapped to a table with a funnel and knives, I wouldn't let it go in my mouth. And cottage cheese, beans, and some other things, and she blends them up into like this paste and puts it in these burritos with eggs, and they're delicious. But I'm getting a supercharged of protein. It's all back to the whole protein thing, and I thought I'd share that with you. I don't know where I was really going with that, but the burrito, me being sluggish, I'm already feeling like I'm shifting gears. How have you been? I know that you've been on the road and traveling and back. How have things been with you?
Good. I actually, this year, for the first 3.5 months, the only traveling I did was round trips to Cali to pick up my son. And I actually had my most productive output and really kind of was a wonderful opportunity to focus. I wrote 24 articles, produced a ton of art, spent a lot of time connecting. And so I just recently got back on the road. I did an 8-day trip to Cali.
Awesome.
And I'm actually leaving tonight to go to LA to go support Jules and his drop tomorrow. And so I've kind of been reinvigorated getting on the road. A little bit under. I caught some kind of the cough going around, so I apologize if I cough. But I've been doing wonderful. I'd say I made a lot of changes in the last couple of years, and made some entirely different ways of how I sort of approach myself in life. And so I've been doing. I never want to jink it, as my friend
Yeah.
used to say, "Don't jink it." But I'm in the happiest place I've been in my probably entire life, certainly my adult life. Nothing's perfect, and I have a lot of challenges, like I'm sure everybody does. But I think how I sit with them has been the biggest change. And I did massively like address where I live, debt, and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm feeling great, bud. I'm always a joy to see you. You're so wonderful at supporting people in the community. So wonderful about focusing on values that matter. And, you know, I always appreciate that. So I was happy to be here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You mentioned going round trip for your son. I love watching the pictures. I feel like three of the four legs of that are semi awesome, and then there's one leg that I feel like just as a dad, I'd be sad every time. The last one. Do you? How do you cope with that return flight? Do you joke with people? Do you do something else to try and distract yourself? How do you get through that?
Um,
And I'm
look,
not trying to punch you in the gut.
no,
That was
no, no,
actually, yeah.
no, don't. I'm no good at hiding my emotions. I am what I am in a way. But no, I'm just reflecting. Look, I held out in Cali for 2 years longer than I should have. Ended up $1.117 million in debt. The worst, depressed, paralyzing depression. It was the first time in my life when I left for 4 months, I couldn't actually work or do anything. And for a year plus, my daughters have been like, Dad, you have to leave here. It's not for you. Um, it's worked out amazing and beyond anything I could imagine. However, not being around my children, I had to basically hold on until I don't mean to be dramatic. And but I was like about the closest to the end I've been before I was like, okay, I just can't take another day.
Right.
And so it's been the most difficult part. Now, the good news is I get along best with my kids that I ever have, but it's pretty savage. I'm not going to lie. Last time I dropped them off was actually the hardest. I think under this new structure, I've seen him less. And I was fucking wrecked, man. I'm not going to lie. I was crying. I, honestly, on and off for a couple days. And it's, look, many things we live with art, a lot of things I explore in my art and so on is like, there's no happily ever after. It is a terrible myth that has, we all think you're going to get through this and it'll be easier next week in a way. And we all do that because like that's how stories used to end. And
Right.
I unfortunately find there's many decisions as I've gotten older I've had to make that are horrible. And it will never be okay. It'll never be, I've dealt with, my last partner betrayed me in a scale and way that is unimaginable. Having to leave my kids, the pressure of like financial challenges, all that stuff. What I'd say is like we all want to kind of spin it at the end of the day and tell ourselves a narrative.
Right.
And I think this year I finally accepted, hey, there's lots of things that are never okay. They'll never be okay when you examine them, and all you can do is your best and contain them, not ignore them, not push them down, because I did that for many years and that leads to explosions of anger and behaviors that you won't be proud of. And
Right.
so what I'd say is
Are you referring to
I
more like, are you referring to more like compassion and grace and things of that nature? I mean, I'm trying to make sure that we understand. Is that what you're saying? Like giving things that
or
a
like,
shit
hey, moving
situation is
away,
never is going to get better.
like meaning if something's happened you've had to make a decision. Like I had
Right.
I there was the best solution at the end of the day was moving here.
Okay.
But that, even though it's a great outcome, of course, I'd always prefer to be around my kids.
Yeah,
Or
I hear you.
if somebody did something terrible to me and I want to make sense of it, the answer is like, if they're not in my life anymore, there's no making sense of it. They did something unimaginable. And all I can do is say, like, yeah, I'm out of it now. I did my best at the time. And understand that if intrusive thoughts or imagery come up, there's no point in engaging them because there is no answer. There's nothing
Right.
I can do. And so what I'm talking about is there's many things where it makes a lot of sense to talk about them because like you need to get people's you might need perspective on it or you might need to get other people into action.
Right.
But there's other things that once the decision's made or once it's happened and it's in the past that you'll never be able to get clarity or closure on it. Like there's no outcome where I prefer to be around my kids less than more,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
but I just was where I was and got to where I did. And so I think like I let myself feel the feelings. I acknowledge that it is unfortunate. And then I say, look, it's better than what I was in, and it's the best I can do. And so I try to focus on connecting and making more time with them. But, those moments where I have to face like getting on a plane and not seeing my 7-year-old son for a month and a half, or I haven't seen my 14-year-old daughter in quite some time. And there's sort of nothing that will make that okay. I just have to do my best. And that's what I mean is like accepting that you won't get closure, that you can only do your best. And, Shrimpy said to me today, we were talking about another issue, and he's like, all's well that ends well. And I never thought of it in the context of like, hey, like this ended better for me so far. I'm in a much better position. I'm out of debt. I've had some big wins recently, and I'm great with my kids. I have a wonderful partner. I have a wonderful apartment. Like my life's awesome, and I need to appreciate that.
Right.
But that doesn't make that other stuff less terrible. So that's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the clarification. I get what you're saying, and I believe in that case you
Well, I'm
have
saying like you're gonna grind on yourself and be like, fuck, okay, like, and descend into misery when I'm like, look, I have to remind myself where I was and where I am, and just do your best with. Like, I think most of us, or I'll speak for myself. I guess I had thought like to be happy, like, okay, you got to get rid of all the bad stuff. And I did all that. But what I realized is like a lot of being happy is being able to live, not ignore, not push down, but contain the bad and spend, don't attach energy to it. And once you've done everything you can, you just have to live with it and be happy. Like, right now I might be having intrusive thoughts and imagery in my head, but I'm just like, okay, that's my brain trying to like, and my system trying to reconcile something that I can't change. I've done everything. And so it's okay. I'll tell it that's not useful. And then I just won't engage, and I'll be happy and live while not. I mean, a lot of us like almost feel, I think like forgiveness or forget, like you feel like at times I felt I was weak because I'm like, well, you can't let somebody do some shit or can't be something bad and not deal with it.
right.
But forgiveness isn't about yourself. It's like forgiving yourself for making those decisions and just never allowing that negativity back is the best you can do, or living with the best solution you have now.
Giving yourself grace. That was the other part of it. I think that I'm pulling that from all of the description, being able to give that. And the word that I was searching for is you have a great perspective. Like perspective is this thing that, and I don't know if it's age 40, there's a line where you go across where all of a sudden, you can start to hear people tell, the only thing about eyewitness testimony is that it's probably wrong because people don't, their minds are affected by how they were raised, how they watch TV, what movies their parents let them go do,
If
what
they ate a protein burrito before.
yeah, did they have a protein burrito before a podcast with a major Web3 influencer and you're just completely shitting the bed mid camera? I'm just teasing. I hope I'm not doing too bad. But yes, that is a man. With ADD, it's like you're throwing a chain in my
But
steer.
you take medication?
I do not. I have tried some in the past at times, and most of the things that I did, they just made me feel like warm or not myself. Like I wasn't, the same level of creativity, kind of like I was dampered. And so I just sort of, I normally learn how to live with it. One of my biggest stories, I'm a big storyteller. We all are, right? One of my biggest stories is when I get in a presentation and I'm up in front of a group of 50 people and I've got a PowerPoint going, or I'm doing a whiteboard, whatever it is, and I'm doing a major presentation and there's a lot on the line. There are times when I will just go to St. Bart's in my head. Like it just, for some reason, I skip a beat or I go over or something makes me think about it or phone, whatever, something's on my mind. And I come back and it's like, where was I? And I will ask the room, hey, sorry, I just went to St. Bart's. I'm very honest, I always have been. What was I talking about? Right. And I would use this as a tool. If the room could tell me what was going on and where I was and bring me back onto glide, I was great. If nobody had any idea what I was talking about or where I was, I took that as a sign. Okay, guess what? We had to come up with a different plan because whatever you were doing wasn't working. So I
Yeah.
learned that it was a superpower if I kind of focused in that way. Once again, so perspective is just a beautiful thing. That I think is what I started this whole thing with.
Yeah, I think I'd asked you about. So I was late stage diagnosed with ADD when I started dating my second wife a month in. She's like, "You realize you have like the worst ADD?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I went and got a diet, like the testing, and I was like,
Right.
fucking. I think I'd been like high performing, relatively speaking, for and gone through school well and all that. But I went on. I tried different medicines. I went on Concerta, which is like
Okay.
Ritalin. And I think with some of the other medicines like Adderall, I felt like I was on blow or it didn't feel good.
Right.
Concerta, if I only, there's been 3 days since I was diagnosed, I haven't taken it. And those were three of the hardest days of my life. And
Okay.
so for me, it's unfortunately without the medication, I take, and I tried SSRIs and other stuff in the past too. Those didn't work. But Concerta has been a life changer for me.
I uh I appreciate that. I know my spouse takes a medication. I don't remember the name of it now. Um, my son has taken it in the past. As I said, I tried. I've I've not found so far that it's gotten in the way of anything, other than maybe completing a to-do list. Um, but for the most part, I've sort of, I'm 54. Like I've had to learn how to adapt. And I think, as you said, I became more high performing from it just because I felt and actually believed the lie that we could multitask. Like, so I would do just all this stuff at the same time and never really, everything was done. But once I learned that we were not multitasking, that we're a single threaded animal, that also changed how I perceived everything and behaved. Um,
Yeah.
anyways, okay, so Concerta, that helps. That's good for your focus. You said you've been producing content. Are you using an app to put it out, or are you just putting it out on X? Because I think I've read it on X, but are you part of
Oh, you mean my
what?
articles and art and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Articles, I post on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay,
And then art, uh, art I've been doing, I sort of found an aesthetic, this worn faded aesthetic. I call it worn faded memories or worn faded transitions. It has, I haven't dropped one of those pieces in the last month or so. I've been working on a daily called Paper Hands Herbert, a character I created to helped me deal with what I call the heaviness of the world. In 21, when I was starting to go through the real set of challenges, I hit a point where I just found reading news just so negative. And so I actually stopped for years. And I knew I needed, like, now that my life is sort of back on track and I need to make decisions, knowing like policy and what's happening.
right.
I wanted to have a way of dealing with the news where it just didn't flip me into like, oh, these fucking idiots mode. And so uh, I was holding a random teddy bear at my girlfriend's house and I was looking at it and it sort of captivated me. And so this idea of bad stuff, if you move it into like a plushy teddy bear world and imagine it happening there, it's still bad, but it just makes it digestible for me.
Right.
And so that's been I've been doing it daily is one of the most difficult processes and more constraining. And so given I haven't been able to achieve the daily. I've tried daily and I'm still not technically competent enough, I would say, to produce what's in my head accurately daily. I
Okay.
just it's very frustrating, and with the I use a variety of tools, but the tools themselves change all the time nowadays. Like you find with Clove Opus 4.6, 4.7 comes in its shit. They try to reduce like the bandwidth they allocate, or chat changes its model, or Flora AI works great and then it stops, or I'm using Adobe and I'm trying to get something done. And, Mendez has helped me, or others, we both love him. He's helped me a
Right.
ton. But so
When you
I look
say
at
you
people,
don't, pause there for a second. When you say you don't get one done every day, and
I work on
then
it every day.
you work on it every day, I was going to say, and then there's some self-deprecating humor in there, and I was going to say, are you just needing more time? Like, if you could dedicate twice as much time in the day, would you get a daily done? And
Well,
it's
I
going to take
dedicate
another
quite a
two.
lot of time to it, and I think
Okay.
part of it was ramping up, at the front end of any project. So
Right.
I'm um one of the things that look, when I have interviewed artists in the past, I often ask them like, "Hey, what was the moment you knew you could be an artist?" And I had a moment where like all my artistic stuff was shut down, and so when I started making art in April of 22 every day, it was to become a better collector. But I still like sometimes I still can't totally get what's in my head to appear in the world, and I don't yet have. So I've massively improved, and so what'll happen is I'll spend many hours, and I just don't get something. Like, look, a lot. Some artists like think everything they do is the best, or people are like the greats that I know are mostly realistic about, and so I think like I'm just trying to be realistic. Like, is this good? And or I just can't get it to where I'm like want to release it, and then the day passes and life takes over. So, or I travel a lot, or I'm sick, or I get locked. Like, today's a classic case of clownery. Like right before we got on, I mean, maybe this is ADHD. I didn't even really like use weed today, which I usually do, and like I couldn't remember any fucking like was trying to check my passwords on my computer, and I did the same thing, but
Yep.
so I would just say I look at people like people and RD is a great example. Like Mendez does dailies. RD has to do a daily that's responsive every day. So you can't just like make 20 of them and walk away. And
Right.
so making a daily based on like a daily happening, I think it's highly like I think look, daily discipline and repeated process as best as you can, like make life better. But so that's something I've been working on. You've seen some of it. I have one I'm going to post. I've been like working on it many hours today, and
How many hours do you
um,
put into a? How many hours do you put into a piece that you end up?
apologies.
Um,
I just had an alarm go off. Sorry. Say that
it's,
again.
it's all good.
Um,
How many hours?
I apologize, man. I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Testing, testing. I can hear you.
I
Yeah, I can
can't
hear you
hear
good.
you. Okay. Fuck.
The beauty. I am sitting here. It's all good. And I put my phone on do not disturb. Mostly solves this problem, and it also just FYI, if somebody calls you that's in your database and they call two times in a row, it'll actually interfere even with do not disturb. I found that out.
Hey, I gotta put on do not just. I sorry, I have
Can
to
you hear
take.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can
Okay,
you
good.
hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
yeah.
put on do not disturb. I apologize. Here, let me do this right now. Sorry about this.
No, it's all good. Macbeth just said that the speed at which the tools are changing is really disruptive.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think people underestimate because you start using the tool and it's updating all the time. And
Right.
so when you are logged in, and I've created like, I've learned a lot about like creating a repeatable process, but it's remarkably hard to make repeatable stuff in most AI. And then if you're drawing it from scratch, that's a huge undertaking. So um
And then the
that's
tool is
that's
basically the plane
where
is moving at the same time.
well, like I'll tell you the facts. Like I started in Flora and I was like, this is amazing. I can like do all kinds of stuff, and then it stopped working. Then I like moved to chat and then it stopped working. Then I was like trying to do it in like Adobe and it was too hard. So that's been, and again, I think many artists in the space, didn't go to art school and didn't have formal training, and that's me, and so
Right.
I think once I log in, I just have found it incredibly frustrating that there should be a way, and like to not, a lot of the time the problem right now with many of the tools that are AI based is this recent, like, last year in April, chat's upgrade was transformational. Everyone was doing Ghibli. I think at the end of last year, with the introduction of these like Opus 4.6 and Codex, all these things, like it was such a leveling up. But
Right.
the bandwidth requirements, like the GPU, is insane. And so what I think we're in this period of is like, if you look at how the AIs are behaving, the best explanation I can give is that they like the models used to throw resources at it to solve it big, and like that's why they were great. And now they're like, fuck, we can't afford that. So it's a lot about throttling you and reducing, and it's like a cost optimization on their end. And so the
Right.
product's gotten worse, and it's hit or miss all the time. And they don't totally know exactly, I think, like how it's being. So that's what
Is
I'm
it going to
saying.
get worse and worse? Is it getting worse and worse because of this? Are you following along with the we're not going to be able to build half the data centers that we forecasted a year ago? And, this is just going to be like we've only got a certain amount of resources and you're going to have more people grabbing it on the teat and you're never going to have enough to be able to power?
No, I think it's, well, I mean, everything's over what time horizon. I'd say, look, they're putting satellites in space. We'll get like unlimited solar power and like laser it back to Earth. You know what I mean? And like
Yep.
you can already get. I don't use it, but the Skylink, you can get insane 400 megabyte per second upload download. So I assume like I'm not deep enough into the deployment in data centers. I've been focused more on my own home machine and then just like using the tools and getting expertise. But we're in the hyper growth phase where the people are still figuring out like, and adoption is just happening. So I think the models were getting dramatically better, but since about post this like huge round, I'd say starting in like March, I've seen nothing but like what feels like,
Degrading.
yeah, like how much. I think it used to be like allocate maximum, like over allocate resources, so solution is amazing. Now it's like allocate minimum to under allocate and like make
Right.
users keep pushing till they'll like fucking eat it, And so challenges like, Claude, like chat added edit a certain area of a picture. Okay. And if you do it, you would think like in Adobe, like the rest doesn't change. Right? Like
Right.
what's the point of having an editor where I can edit like these pixels? But what happens is you edit those and then every fucking else thing, like they'll change two other things over here. And I'm like, so then you're like whack-a-moling, you know.
Right.
And so that's what I'd say. So what would I say? Look, everyone's shifting for data center builds. Like my GeForce RTX 5090 is like the last high end consumer chip like NVIDIA is currently focused on. They're just focused on data centers. And humans are remarkably good at solving problems. And you can still allocate GPU if it's at your house. So I just think the challenge is like having a render model. Like I could render in Flux. So I'm moving to that on my home machine, or using like, and so that's the real solution that I'm moving towards. But when you have a character like that is expressive and change, if you lose the core of the character, it's super hard. And I know there's character AI and stuff designed, but I think the combination of everything, the stability has been a little harder. So that's why I'm going to try to, I mean, I finally got my home machine back up and running. I've been running in Nano Banana 2 a lot for this. And so I have to move it into
Right.
Flux or one of the other models that's open source and replicate the same feel. So what I was trying to do, the idea was like, look, if I can make 50 of these and then train a LoRa, I wanted to do it that way. So like not having to totally recreate it, get at the inputs, run a LoRa on Flux, and then I'm good to go. So that's where I'll end up. But it's just this early scaling period has been a lot of work.
Do you think any of this is intentional? Like they're putting pain in there so that people will go buy the Mac Minis and create their own
Well, no, I
offline
think
so that at some point, well, I'm going to ask the question because I'm curious if do you think that there's a point where you could take all those isolated instances and connect them back into the main system and now you've got like distributed computing and all this other power? I mean, I'm just wondering if is there a long-term goal where they're making it painful so you'll do something that's not natural?
I don't look. I think the way it works is they're running a company, they have hyper growth. They, I mean, I ran two companies, took them from like 40 million combined to 140 million in a decade. And, you're trying to fix the car while driving 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And so I think it's like, hey, we threw too much resource there. Let's like optimize. And they create all these fancy things to like, so we can, I actually think it's the opposite. Like, let's make sure our users have a good experience, but we're not broke in the process. And so I think, look, I think it's very hard in a super growth industry where like you're competing. I just think there are people making all sorts of decisions to like ensure the company can run and so I think their desire is to like lock you more into their AI. But if everyone's using chat and they're like losing money on people nonstop because it's too much computing power relative to what they pay. And so, like, I look at Claude and I pay the Claude Pro, plus I spend hundreds, like many more hundreds on like extra usage. And, chat, I think works a little different. And so there are, I just think like everybody's trying to survive and everybody was hoping for more data, like more GPU processing and, you know, the world's a
Right.
complex place, there's war and, policies changing. And look, I do think, again, I don't want to tread into an area I have no expertise, which is most. But I do see the only time I've seen like not conspiracy style stuff is I did think it was weird when like, and this is totally made up. And so like I give it a low probability, but I just noticed like when the White House like signed the deal with Claude, like I mean with chat, like that same day, all of a sudden Claude like went down, and I was like, what the fuck? So who knows? But I generally think it's not conspiracy theory, and I generally think things are like hard to organize globally without leakage. It's just businesses growing at massive. I mean, there's so many AI companies. There's so much
Right.
demand. I mean, look, Nvidia is one of the most valuable companies in the world because, this is a transformation. The scale of transformation, I think I'm 51, I'm not 54, I'm 51. So both of us remember pre cell phones and then the first cell phones. Then I remember the
Right.
internet and email. Then I remember it. We are now talking like just how the internet like re-architected. I'm not telling anybody what they don't know, but I look at how I live every day. And I'd say I'm probably relatively speaking a pretty like high user of AI. I use 4 AIs plus my own every day, all day for pretty much everything. And have been for many years. And I just think like I'm at a point where if I am doing something with the outside world, I always want to make sure like, I can't in real time hear like you were asking, hey, what do you mean? And sometimes like when you're talking, if you're writing, you can like review it multiple times to see if it's sending the message you want. And so every communication or every project, like AI is some piece of all parts of my life now. And so think of a think of like 2 years ago, there were people using AI, but like who does like a bill like Chat GPT now every like you go to a regular party with people and everybody's like used it. And
Yeah, no,
so
I use it every day. Like
yeah,
it's something I use every day, and I'm the guy that stayed away from it because of Skynet and the Terminator, and I needed to keep protected and things like that. Let me shift gears because I want to be conscious of your time.
I'm good.
Let's shift gears to in real life. You went out, you didn't catch a cold, but you got to see a bunch of people, and we've got 6 months to Marfa. Do you have a bunch of shows all the way through until Marfa? Because I know you're going to attend Marfa. Do you have a bunch of shows you've already got on the calendar to
Uh,
attend?
you were talking about like multitasking. One of the funny things I do at trips. So Marfa, I am for the first time in like 5 years. I guess I've been going. Never booked a hotel. I was always like too late and they were sold out. This year I got a hotel.
Good for
So it's
you.
like the first year where it's not stressing me out. Um, I often complete one trip before I like book the next one.
Yep.
Um, partly is those shit's expensive. And so I'm kind of like rolling, like,
Right.
I mean, just being realistic, like, and part of it is I just don't like. I booked a trip today to go to LA tonight to be with Jules tomorrow, and I just did that at 10:30 today. So, what I'd say is we were talking at the beginning about, you know, I sort of reviewed. I've been in a great place. One of the things I do now, as much as possible, is like listen to my soul. And
Okay.
I was laying in bed last night. I had a recent, I had one of these funny things. So I'm like my comic today is like how illiquidity and heartbreak feel like similar because I invested in this thing like years ago and really went hard last year. Um, and it looks like there's like a huge win on paper. Okay. Like
Okay.
I invested in a fund that holds Tether and I started buying it when Tether was valued at like 13 billion. And it looks like they're gonna, they've been saying they're gonna raise at 500 billion, and deals have been going through at 300 plus, so they remarked it. And so
Wow.
on paper, I have all up like it's a big win for me, but I can't get any of it, for the foreseeable future. And so
Right.
that made me feel good though, and I booked a trip to LA anyway. So that's kind of like I wasn't gonna go, and I was sick, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have any new money except on like a page that I can't do anything with. So, but that's kind of like I know that's a lot of detail and random,
No,
but
but that's great, and
that's
I
like
think
I guess I sorry, go ahead.
no, I think that's great. I think the
I don't
the
like planning a ton. Like I don't. I feel like when plans, like when I have weekend plans, it just like weighs the fuck. I'm stressed out about the thing on the calendar, and I have a huge problem. Like I've been better, but I just like, and I used to not be like this, but I'm really bad at like, even if I calendar something, I sometimes like forget about it or so I'm really trying to like find the right balance of course, you have to plan in life. And I have like 4 kids and a girlfriend and, have to see my aging parents. But I do it like I sort of know stuff's there. Like Marfa, I booked the hotel, and then I'm like, okay, I finished that last trip. I came back, and I thought I was working on another thing. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do this trip, and then I come back Sunday. Then I'll look at the next one, and so.
No, it's good. I like that.
And,
I think what I'm hearing from you, unless everything's coming out of points, is the airlines don't completely trash you for booking last minute like they used to. Are they making that
you know who I
some?
learned this from? So the king of this is Shrimp Dough. This
Okay.
motherfucker will book the ticket on the drive to the airport. I used to be like, you can do that shit. And then when I found I was canceling stuff and then getting credit and couldn't reuse, I'm like, this fucking sucks. And it does turn out, look, I fly to California a lot. Um, and I'm a prima donna on that. And I like to travel and business or whatever. And the price is pretty much the same on American Airlines, regardless of when you book it. And the
Okay.
price is twice as much on United, regardless of when you book it. So I sort of have a thing with American. And so, yeah, it turns out the flight I booked and this trip is costing me substantially less than the trip I planned, where I was taking my girl away and doing all the same shit. I'm
Right.
in for this one for like, wait, yeah. So I haven't, I mean, not to again jink it, but so far, it seems to work. I mean, I'm not, I guess I booked same day today. I'm not using that, but I did book tonight, this morning.
And it's funny. I just feel like, the last couple of times I've needed to make a change, I'm notorious for booking the wrong flight to return home. I don't know what it is. I just
Yeah.
sometimes I'm booking into Love Field and I flew out of DFW and my car's at one, and it's like I brain fart that kind of stuff all the time, and so it's like I call up, hey, I need to make the change. Oh, that's $250. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I can't be that dumb. And they're like,
Dude, I'm
well,
not
if
dumb.
you,
I have
if,
2 grand in like travel credits of like cancel. I'm like, fucking,
oh,
and I was trying to apply them, but then it's a one way because I booked it last minute. Then it won't apply to this. I can only fly it. So I'm like, that story of my life is like, I used some travel credits on my last trip. I'm like, fuck yeah. So
yeah,
I've been using it before they expire, but it's like they make it so hard. So, and then it's
they
so much
do.
more expensive to book a refundable. They're like, oh, that's like 500 for your ticket. You want refundable? They're like 1,200. Or I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what I was going to say. And the last one I did, they said, and this was where I was going to say that maybe the secret, they said, but you can make same
same
day
day change.
changes for
That's what
free.
you do. That's what I did.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm like, okay, so I set my alarm for 1 a.m. I wake up at 1 a.m. I call in. It takes 30 seconds and I'm back asleep and I wake up. Anyways, it's
Wait, why are you calling in and not doing this shit online, bro?
I I had used a travel agent. It was a work trip and I'd used a travel agent and it was Southwest. And there's something, back to use your word, janky between using an agent and their like Southwest biz
Yeah,
service
yeah,
they have. So I had to call. Actually, it might have,
yeah.
yeah. Anyways, it worked out. But okay. Hey, I really appreciate you doing this. Anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? Like,
Yeah, that's all right. I think this industry we've been in for many years has been challenging. And we've lost a lot of participants. And I think we've had a little hope here. And I'd say, um, I know this isn't just a Web3 podcast, but I'm wonderfully, despite all these challenges we've talked about with AI, despite all the challenges with travel and art and taxes and heartbreak, and I look at the world and I told you in 21, I sort of gave up news because I've been working on a lot of service issues from, you know, volunteering in Folsom Prison to dealing with the melted glaciers in Antarctica. And I sort of gave up hope. I was like, oh my God, like I don't see a way out. What I feel now um, is there's so much interesting stuff happening again. I do think like AI is just a tool and it will allow us to solve or approach some of the major existential problems for humans. And
Right.
I think on a smaller scale in day to day life, like all of us are being helped. And this year, there's been so many wonderful and creative projects. I think there's many artists that I think are brilliant, but if I can call out like the pursuit of equilibrium and Ben, what he's been doing, generally, I love. I think OX Ripe and T Bam showing like the potential of infinite generative art.
Mm.
Um, this project that Jules is dropping tomorrow is a massively big project in terms of revenue in the space and scale. And I think it's a beautiful project. Um, seeing cool artists coming up and be recognized who've been fighting in the trenches for years. What I call like, look, there was people that I feel like now I've been coming to space in November 21. I was a little behind apes, but I've sort of like grown up with a lot of these people, not for lack of a better term, and watching them shine now in the 6529 universe, like Rocket Girl, Nuclear Samurai, Ghoul. I never pronounced her name right. Ghoul or Esra Aslan is somebody I found in like 22, and now she's like, and so I just think like overnight success takes years,
Right.
and everywhere I look in my world now, like it's cool to see like people who've been fighting it out, regardless. Like everyone has different art preferences. I like that we're seeing novel and cool and exciting projects, and that you know this general idea of this community we're in, that it's you can still be like capitalist and so on, but like be almost like this gratis capitalism, like the spirit of social connection and fairness, but still like people doing well, shining, making money, and living their dreams. And so I'm feeling like I see more of that now, and the people who have stuck it out. Like this isn't easy, and it's going to be a long horizon, but generally it's very easy to get depressed when you read the news, and I won't get political, but just hearing stuff you would have never expected to hear, or seeing,
Right.
you know, many people's lives on this planet right now, are terrible. But I remind myself in 2026, most of us in America live better than kings did for most of history, and we have access to many things. So I want to end. We talked a lot about, it's easy to talk about sort of challenges and frustrations in life, I think. But I want to end on the positive note that, like, hey, we live, everyone says, like, it's a wonderful time to be alive. But I've been able to do stuff I never dreamed I could without many of the new tools available. Stuff I never dreamed I could without this wonderful community of people who care and value stuff. And, you know, I've been dating my girlfriend for 7 months, and her continuous comment, and I'm so proud of this, man, oh, gee, like, your friends are so nice. It's so amazing. I went to an event. I've never felt so welcome. People are like, your trader was just beyond wonderful to my girlfriend, or, you know, and so I don't know. I think as I age, like, I so appreciate everyone here who's stuck it out. And I appreciate that we're in a position, despite the headlines, that like many people's lives are getting better. And I just want to be happy about that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that. I appreciate you calling that out. I do think we do sometimes dwell on the negative a lot. And I have felt, I do spaces twice a week, shout out Tuesday and Fridays, and they've had consistent attendance. There's been a lot of participation, people coming up on the stage that I've not, heard or talked to before. And there's been an energy just that I've felt that people are, I don't want to use the word jazz because that's going to make me sound like an old guy, but it feels like people are jazzed. I did
Yeah,
use it, didn't I?
yeah. There's people like many of the people I've seen toiling for years are getting some recognition. Many of the people who are just beyond wonderful and doing great are doing greater things on a greater scale. Like I'm gonna go to the Rail Art Basel this year. You're asking, that's probably like, but looking at like, years ago they wouldn't give the artists who come from our space a second look, and now I feel like people, Jack, 010, like, I'm not saying everyone's accepted us, and I think there's still integration stuff, but I don't know, it's just super cool to be like, yo, my best homies are like at Art Basel, like the star of it, like
Yeah.
in a way, like and seeing like Eli and all he's done, just watching all these people, obviously Benny's tireless and Jules is a great example. Like this, I've loved Jules since the jump and the flower, and we've been homies for we're like brothers. And I had to go there tomorrow to be with him. And so that shit's was super cool to me.
It's fantastic. I appreciate you coming back. I'm gonna hold you to a third episode in the
All the
near
time, man.
future. Yeah,
Anytime.
I,
Love
I
it.
I really appreciate it. Safe travels,
Yeah. Well,
and
you'll hear from me. Get ready for birds tomorrow. We'll be cheering on Jules, and I might get a good personal announcement tomorrow. Let's watch the news for Tether and see if anything good happens. Root for me. And
I'm watching.
yeah. All
Fantastic.
right.
I appreciate you, man.
Okay. I love you
Be
guys.
safe. Love you
Bye.
too. Take care.